Imagine a massive, mathematically perfect spatial anomaly suddenly rips open at the very bottom of the Mariana Trench. Specifically, this teleportation tunnel appears inside the Challenger Deep, resting exactly 10,984 meters below sea level. At this extreme depth, the immense weight of the ocean above exerts a crushing local fluid pressure of 108.6 megapascals against the boundary. This vector diagram shows the Bernoulli equation for incompressible fluid dynamics. It converts that staggering pressure into velocity. Through a modest 10-meter portal, that flow translates to a narrow stream shooting out at half a kilometer per second. But achieving supersonic flow means very little on a planetary scale. A 10-meter leak is totally insufficient to trigger an immediate geological event. This scale model displays the total volume of Earth's hydrosphere. We are dealing with 1.332 billion cubic kilometers of seawater. If we rely on our 10-meter anomaly, draining that block would take a boring 100 millennia. To observe a catastrophic biosphere collapse in our lifetimes, we must assume the portal is artificially enlarged to a radius of exactly 100 kilometers. Now, the oceans drain in a matter of months. And if you attempted to plug a hole that large using the combined physical mass of every living human being, it wouldn't work. The entire species would be sucked through the void in less than a millisecond. Scaling the aperture by a factor of 10,000 crosses a critical mathematical threshold, compressing the timeline from a slow, negligible leak into a month-long planetary drain. As the Pacific funnels violently into the Marianas Void, global sea levels plummet. International supply chains crash instantly, stranding thousands of cargo ships and naval fleets in the mud of exposed continental shelves. Great Britain quickly ceases to be an island, physically reunifying with mainland Europe across a vast expanse of seabed known as Doggerland. Further south, New Zealand expands outward massively as the submerged continental crust of Zealandia breaches the surface. Because the Strait of Gibraltar is relatively shallow, the Mediterranean Sea is completely cut off from the Atlantic Ocean early in the drain sequence. Left isolated in a warm, arid regional climate, the trapped Mediterranean water begins to evaporate at an extreme rate rather than flowing toward the Pacific portal. It ultimately leaves behind a superheated salt desert. This exact phenomenon, known as the Messinian salinity crisis, actually occurred on Earth millions of years ago. The physical removal of the oceans instantly obliterates modern geopolitical maritime borders, replacing them with continuous, exposed, and highly volatile stretches of raw land. The oceans are the primary engine of the global climate. Without their massive thermal regulating mass absorbing solar heat, the global water cycle entirely ceases. Rain stops falling. Former temperate coastal zones face severe meteorological extremes, baking into scorching deserts by day and plunging below freezing at night. Billions of tons of marine life are suddenly stranded across the newly dry abyssal plains, triggering an instantaneous mass extinction. As those colossal oceanic biomasses decompose, they release staggering atmospheric-altering volumes of methane and carbon dioxide. The thermodynamic removal of the hydrosphere creates an inescapable biogeochemical feedback loop. Extreme temperature fluctuations, combined with a toxic atmosphere, guarantee the total extinction of the terrestrial biosphere. On the other end of the anomaly, the displaced hydrosphere drops directly out of the Martian sky, plunging into the center of massive Gale Crater. Millions of tons of hyper-pressurized, freezing saltwater crash down every second, instantly crushing and obliterating the delicate scientific instrumentation of NASA's Curiosity Rover. Because standard aerospace warranties explicitly omit coverage for interplanetary flash floods involving terrestrial ocean water, NASA is entirely unable to claim the damages. The relentless water overflows the crater basin, carving a violent path down into Valles Marineris. This scar stretches 4,000 kilometers across the equator. 10 times longer and 5 times deeper than the Grand Canyon, it provides the capacity to catch Earth's oceans. The violent kinetic transfer of 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of liquid mass forcefully and destructively initiates a brand new Martian hydrosphere. But water behaves strangely here. Mars operates under two extreme environmental baselines: atmospheric pressure that is less than 1% of Earth's, and deep space freezing temperatures. In fluid dynamics, drastically lowering the ambient atmospheric pressure simultaneously lowers the boiling point of any exposed liquid. This phase diagram illustrates the multi-phase paradox. Hitting the near vacuum, the hyper-pressurized saltwater flash boils, while extreme cold simultaneously forces it to flash freeze. The Martian surface becomes a violently oscillating environment of matter confusion, existing perpetually as ice, liquid, and gas all at once. Eventually, the sheer volume of the incoming water overwhelms the local atmospheric conditions. The ocean pools and stabilizes, allowing a kilometers-thick ice sheet to freeze over a deep liquid basin. The vast quantities of flash-boiled water vapor pumped into the sky remain trapped in the atmosphere, functioning as a highly potent greenhouse gas that thickens the Martian air. This catastrophic fluid transfer paradoxically acts as an accidental, self-sustaining terraforming engine. That greenhouse vapor traps enough solar radiation to keep the deep Martian oceans permanently liquid beneath their frozen crust. Back on Earth, the survival of humanity relies entirely on adaptation. Traditional global superpowers, whose economies and militaries depended on aircraft carriers and naval supremacy, find themselves completely obsolete. A massive power vacuum emerges, perfectly tailored for the Netherlands. For centuries, the Dutch have dedicated their national engineering focus to a single war, managing and fighting the ocean through the industrial scale of the Delta Works. With their traditional oceanic enemy completely gone, the Dutch no longer have to hold back the tides. This sudden victory frees up an unmatched surplus of heavy machinery, technological innovation, and elite engineering corps. Their pre-existing hyper-competence in hydrological terrain management makes the Netherlands the inevitable, uncontested supreme power of a dry Earth. They conquer the abyssal plains faster than anyone else. Realizing the water they fought for centuries has relocated, the Dutch military and engineering corps march directly through the Mariana anomaly. They arrive in the flooded Valles Marineris and immediately apply their terrestrial mastery of dike construction and polder management to tame the red soil. They establish the interplanetary capital of New Netherlands, seamlessly integrating excellent low-gravity bicycle infrastructure across the Martian seas. From a strictly legal standpoint, teleporting the Pacific Ocean to another planet does constitute a severe violation of multiple international maritime and environmental protection treaties. You can subscribe to the channel or not. Ultimately, the future expansion of the Sun will consume both Earth and Mars, rendering engagement metrics entirely irrelevant. Mastering extreme fluid dynamics can guarantee temporary survival and even forge an intergalactic Dutch empire, but absolutely no planetary system is immune to the eventual, inescapable laws of stellar thermodynamics.